Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cozy Corner. My name is Lee and this is my library, so grab a mug of something yummy and settle in for some talk of books. Today we're going to be talking about how to write a good book review. There are 3 reasons as to why I'm making this video. 1, for me. I have been working on having a nice solid format for writing a book review for a few months now, ever since I started BookTube back in September. I read a lot of books in a month and it gets tedious writing individual reviews for all of them, so I wanted a good system where I know I would have good reviews for each book that wouldn't take a whole lot of time. And the second reason is for you all. If you are also looking for a good system to write a book review that doesn't take a lot of time, if you read a lot of books like me, I hope you will take some of this advice to heart. I have compiled a bit of advice from different places as well as my own thoughts as to what should be included in a good book review, so if it doesn't necessarily all work for you, feel free to change it. There's no patent. You can change what you wish. And the third reason is because no one reads the same book. You may pick up the same book title as someone else, but that book is completely different to the other person who is reading it. No one reads the same book. And I think this is something we tend to forget when we write reviews, because I mentioned before that I think people's 5-star rating systems are top heavy. So a lot of books that get 4 or 5-star reviews that don't necessarily deserve them, which is why I overhauled my own 5-star rating system and made it a little more cutthroat, because I felt like I was being a little too forgiving and lenient on the quality of certain books. And so I wanted to also make sure that my book reviews reflected that. But I tend to think that the best book reviews are objective and concise and reflect the fact that just because I liked this book does not mean anyone else will like it. And so I want to give the best review I can to let everyone know the pros and cons of the books I'm reading. So now that I've told you the reasons why, we're going to talk about how to write a good book review. Let's actually get into the meat of the thing. So when you're starting to write a good book review, the first thing we start with, obviously, is an explanation of the plot. That's not always as easy as I think it's going to be, because we need to make sure that we keep it concise, but also avoid generalization. A good hook or book blurb you find on book jackets do exactly this kind of paradox explanation. Those book blurbs are a delicious combo of overview, but sprinkled with very specific context clues. I'm going to give you an example. I wrote a book blurb about a book that doesn't exist on my computer that shows off this example of keeping it concise but avoiding generalization, so I'm going to read it to you. A mysterious curse has plagued Princess Jane's life, making everything she touches a dismal failure. But when the curse turns out to be the creation of a warlock who is the mortal enemy of her long-lost father, Jane sets out to break the curse and take control of her own happiness. Along the way, she meets a roguish forest dweller who is seemingly unaffected by Jane's curse, but has his own magical secrets. Joined by a cast of diverse characters, will Jane persevere and break her curse? Or will the real truth of the curse turn her world upside down and ruin her chance at love? That, I thought, was the best combination of keeping it concise but avoiding generalization. It was a very quick overview of the plot, but with a lot of context clues. There's a curse that makes everything Jane touches a failure. Everything, so relationships, hobbies, whatever. There's a long-lost father. Why was he lost? What could happen there? There's a roguish man she meets in the forest. Does she fall in love with him? He has his own magical powers. Is he involved in the curse? And then the whole other cast of characters, and then of course the hook at the end that says, will the curse reveal something even greater than the truth she longs to find? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, where you keep people on the edge of their seat about the plot. However, that does not mean that you get to regurgitate the actual book blurb that's in the book blurb, you know? People have access to that already, so maybe you want to spice it up. Add some spice to your summary that isn't in the PR description. Maybe you could add one detail of a subplot that you really enjoyed, or a particular theme that you thought was very prevalent in the storyline. Pick something that really stuck out to you that's not super spoiler filled and weave that into your summary of the plot. Make it a little different, right? Just because someone reads the blurb on the book check, that's not inherently enough to make someone like it. So add a little spice of your own to sort of mix it up in your explanation of the plot. So now that we've talked about the plot and we've got that out of the way, now we can go into what you really liked about the book. I know a lot of people do this when they read. Annotating is a great way to keep track of the things you enjoyed as well as the things you didn't enjoy, which we'll talk about in a minute. Being too effusive in your book reviews is something I see all the time. I think it's respectful of people's time to keep it short and sweet and maybe include 5 bullet points of the things you liked, or the top 5 moments in that book that you really, really enjoyed. It doesn't necessarily have to be about plot. It can be about the language use, character development, themes, tropes, you know, the things outside of the actual story that you really, really enjoyed that kept you hooked. Like I said before, no one reads the same book as you do. Allow people to develop their own emotions and opinions about what they're reading. I see it all the time where a review is so hyped up and emotional that I almost feel let down. And I feel like if I didn't enjoy the book, then I missed out on what makes this book great. And I feel like I didn't get everything out of it that I should have. I often find that hearing people tell me too much about what they love almost ruins the book for me, because I'm going to feel like I missed out on something if I didn't feel the same way about it as they did. So, short to the point, 5 bullet points. What are the top 5 things you loved about the book? And then, on the other side of that, what are the things you didn't like about the book? Same with mentioning things that you enjoyed about the book. Keep the things you disliked about the book to the same length. Unless you don't have as many, in which case you found a gem, and good on you. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I watch or read a review and all I see or hear is, I don't know, I just didn't like it. And that's all they say. Tell me why. I promise you, you will build a reliable and trustworthy reputation as a book reviewer if you practice being a critical reviewer. Don't be afraid to be honest about the things you didn't like about a book. Even if you love previous works written by that same author, it's okay. As a writer myself, sometimes criticism does hurt, yes, but ultimately my work benefits from that objective critical review. So here are a few examples of things that maybe you didn't like about a book, or examples that I've used in the past. Was the plot loose? Was there character development that you didn't like? Were there plot holes? Was there a lot of information dumping? Did you have a lot of questions? You didn't know what was going on in the story? How was the world building? Did you struggle with the language? The more specific your review is, the better your review is going to be. There's a sort of unspoken rule in writing that the more specific you are in your writing, the more people will relate to it. Chances are, if you've noticed an error in a book, so has someone else, right? There's going to be someone else in that camp with you of not liking a certain thing about a book. Same thing with liking things about a book. Chances are there'll be people who enjoyed the same things you do, but there will also be people who agree with you that there was this big glaring plot hole, or I didn't like any of the decisions these characters made. I thought the language they used was too hard to get into or didn't match the style of the writing. It's okay to be specific about the things you didn't like. Another issue that can happen when people write book reviews is the occasional narcissism. Sometimes we like to toot our own horns by saying, oh, this in no way compares to this other great book that I've read. That's not the point. Remember, the point of good book reviews is to be objective. Keep you out of the book review, right? It's not about you and you reading the book, it's about the book in general. Your review should be solely about the book and its contents and not anything about you and how you think it should have been written. Your emotions while reading are valid. I'm not trying to say that they aren't, and if something in the book bothered you, it's okay to explain why. But like I said before, remember, good book reviews are not opinionated and logical and well thought out. The emotions and your love for the book are the icing on the cake. The cake itself is the good solid. non-opinionated review. Your emotions as to why you liked or disliked the book are the icing on the cake. So we've had plot summary, 5 bullet points as to things you liked about the book, the same amount of bullet points as to the things you didn't like, unless it skewed heavily one way or the other. And then we're going to round up the review. That's the 4th part of a book review. Just like readers in general dislike info dumping in a book, make sure you've wrapped up your review in a nice way. You can call back to the description you made at the beginning of your review. You can highlight another theme that you really enjoyed. An important part of this section of a book review is to remember, like I said at the beginning, no one's going to read the same book as you. So if your review is skewed to the good or skewed to the bad, which is fine, that happens, remember that someone else may not agree with you on those things. And so in this wrap-up or roundup of your review, maybe include a few things in this section where if you thought the book was really good, maybe include a few points that people might struggle with. Or if you thought the book was a little problematic, remember, people may not have those same problems, so pick a few things that you genuinely enjoyed about the book, right? Trying to be as objective as we can be. This has happened to me quite a lot. I've read enough books in my life to know when I'm reading that I'm either struggling with the content or I'm not the intended audience. Those are really the 2 reasons as to why books tend to skew towards the negative for me. This happened most recently with Ruby by Francesca Lia Block and Carmen Staten, where I knew that I was not the intended audience for that book, and so I tried to include that in my review, saying, look, I didn't get these things out of this book, but I'm fairly certain that someone else will. And so I tried to highlight the parts that I thought would be good for other readers, even though I didn't particularly enjoy them. So after you've wrapped up your review again, tied it back to the beginning, right? We love a full circle. Now we get to add the bow on top, right? Or the cherry on top, depending on which analogy you want to use. But include your star review. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I think people are too lenient with their star systems sometimes, which is why I overhauled mine to make it more critical. It happened to me a lot where I found myself giving too many books, too many free passes. So it's kind of the seal of approval on your book review. If I know your star rating system is solid, then I'm going to trust your book review to back that up, right? Justify why you're giving it this many stars out of this many stars. And then if your review is objective and critical, I'm expecting your star rating system to back it up. They have to go hand in hand, right? So if you were on the whole towards the negative in your book review, I'm expecting that to directly correlate to your star review. And if I see that book only got 2 stars, why did it only get 2 stars? I'm expecting to see logical, concise, objective information as to why you gave it that many stars in your review. Also, as a side note, is it irritating to anyone else how they don't give you the option on Goodreads to do half stars, and yet when you look at like the overall average rating on Goodreads, it says something like 4.5 stars? How do you get the half? So that is how I created my book review format. We have a concise but not overgeneralized summary of the plot, 5 things I liked, 5 things I didn't like, a summary of the review, and then my 5-star rating system. 5 tips to help you write a better review. What are your tips for writing a good book review? Did you agree with all of mine? Did you have any suggestions? What are you going to use? What aren't you going to use? Let me know. I'd love to know what you're thinking. Do you have any questions? I really enjoyed making this video. It's been fun to sort of put together my thoughts on book reviews and share some of that with you guys. I'm hoping to do more of these, I guess, quote-unquote educational videos in the future. I really enjoy doing them to help myself and others become better, more prolific and well-educated readers. So if you like this, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to Leigh's Library. It really does help me out. Let me know what you guys want to see. As always, thank you to the friends and family who have readily supported me along this journey. It means the world to me, and I can't wait to see what's on the next page. Cheers.